Folks, welcome back. This is Chris at the AfriForum headquarters here in Pretoria, speaking with Kallie Kriel about the recent decision to team up with March and March. And I've got some questions for him, and I'm sure you're curious too. So, Kallie, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. You're welcome to our office, and also the people watching. This is how my office looks.
Yeah, it's a nice office. You keep it clean. My office is not quite this tidy, but then it's because I'm doing 1,000 things at once. But, so let's get to this. So recently it was announced in the press just a couple of days ago that AfriForum, a civil rights organization under the Solidarity umbrella, is now teaming up, if that's the wrong language, you correct me, teaming up with Jacinta Nkubisi Zuma's March and March movement, which was a group that came together, and I'll stand on corrections, a group that came together because they're angry at the lawlessness taking place in South Africa and the illegal aliens who are here and nothing's being done about it. So they gave the government rather cheekily a 30 June suspense, a deadline for these people to leave. And they had a big march, and now they've decided that they had initially stated they're going to do marches every Thursday until everyone's gone, but that's ludicrous. There's 6 million illegal aliens in the country, so that's going to take a lifetime to take care of that. So they decided that they wanted to emulate in some aspects the things that AfriForum is doing, including standing up for cultural groups and first languages. So now you have an association or affiliation with them, or they have an affiliation with you. Is that correct?
Yes. It doesn't mean we have to agree on every single issue. They don't have to agree with some of the stuff we do. But I think what's important is if we want to build a future in the country for Afrikaners, for minorities, but also the majority of people in this country, we need to be able to identify those issues that are of common interest and then cooperate on those issues. And there are a number of issues of common interest that we do have specifically with March and March. I think the people that are involved there are grassroots people. They are active in communities. AfriForum is also a grassroots organization. So we don't need talk shops in the country anymore. We need to make real action. And I think that is one of the points that makes it possible for us to cooperate. But then we want to say, what do we want in this country? We want the future for our children. And to make sure that we achieve that, we cannot have a lawless country. And that is what we are seeing in the country. That is why more than 70 people are being murdered in this country every day. It's lawless. And why is it lawless? Because the laws in the country is not being implemented.
And there's no enforcement.
No enforcement.
And consequently, there's no deterrence to committing crime. People will just commit crime with impunity because the chances of being caught are slim. They're even slimmer to be arrested, even slimmer to be prosecuted, and almost impossibly convicted, correct?
Yes. And then if you start, when you speak to the leftist people that say, no, this is terrible, that March and March is taking on, they say it's anti-immigration. What it actually is anti-illegal immigration, people without documentation. So if you are going to say, you know what, we're not going to have border control, and that is what is happening now. There's really no border control. Also, AfriForum members that live on the border suffer. Shots are being fired with those people coming through with illicit cigarettes. We had farmers there on the border asking us to come and help. We had to send in drones. But if you're going to say, no, it's fine, people can be here illegally, so then the law is not implemented. Next thing, you can take land illegally. Next thing is you can steal. Next thing is you can murder somebody.
But all of these things are actually happening already.
That's true. So that is why we are not deterred. It's not xenophobia. It's not anti-immigration. It's pro-rule of law and pro making sure that there's not lawlessness. And that is what they are attacking. It's also quite clear. They say that they are against violence. And if you listen to their leadership, it's not a bunch of mad people. It's very level-headed.
The March and March leadership.
Yes, specifically. But of course, you will always have criminal elements trying to latch on to these kind of things. We've also seen people that were sent to some AfriForum events they then want to misbehave, and it gives the whole
And give the
organization
impression that AfriForum is doing that.
Yeah. So so as long as I think one should say what is the leadership saying. If you look at the protests they had, it was not widespread chaos. There were incidents, but if you look at the most people participating, it was disciplined without violence, and so. But we must. That is not the cause of the problem. It's a symptom of the problem. The
Sure.
real problem is not March and March. It's not AfriForum.
It's the government.
It's a government that are failing the people.
The South African government loves to say, particularly in relationship talking about the United States, they constantly want to remind us that they're a sovereign state. And I agree, South Africa is a sovereign state. But I would argue that the government of South Africa has abrogated their sovereignty when it comes to the borders.
Yeah.
The borders are porous. And there's an irony here, Kallie, and that is that when Donald Trump says the same things that Jacinta and Kabisi Zuma is saying about illegal migration, he's labeled a racist.
Yeah.
But he just wants the rule of law. And we've restored the rule of law in America. But we have the same issue that South Africa, porous borders not being properly monitored or patrolled, and people flooding the country, which reduce wages. It occupies housing that otherwise would go to people who are legally in the country, and it causes lots of friction. Never mind the crime it's associated with. There is crime associated with. So that's the first thing. The second thing about this is that I have been critical of March and March, and my viewers know that. So I'm interested in full disclosure here. And now AfriForum is working alongside March and March. So I don't want anyone to be misled about where my position was. My commentary was about sort of the people I think you mentioned. There are people who claim to be associated with March and March who are committing criminal acts, harassing illegals and even South Africans, dragging them out of their houses, beating people. There are actually a few deaths that took place. I don't know, and I've never been able to link any of those people to March and March. Based on what you're saying, it sounds to me like the organization would disavow those people and does not have any association with people who claim to be March and March who perpetuated violence. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I definitely think so.
So I'm sorry, you're trying to answer, but I just want to make it clear because my audience knows that I was very critical. I never accused March and March of violence, but I said people claiming to be March and March.
Yeah.
So good. Sorry.
But I think what is also important, there are many people that are critical of March and March, and that is, of course, their right to do so. But I think what is important, if you look from it from an Afrikaner perspective or a minority perspective, why is this also a strategic move? It isn't a strategic move because there are efforts to isolate us in the country.
Politically, economically, socially.
Yes, and that is from the leftist political elite. They are a minority.
But not the average South African.
No. If you look at the World Values Survey, 80% of South Africans have social conservative values.
And that's black, white, or brown.
Yes, that's correct. But now you have these individuals like Naledi Pandor saying there can't be an Afrikaans university, like Fikile Mbalula that makes very racist remarks with regard to Afrikaners, mocking Afrikaners that went to the US.
I mean the car guards.
The car guards. If you look specifically at Julius Malema saying we should be killed, Afrikaners
I think you should worry about getting better attorneys.
So, but if those things are happening and you have to counter that, and we want to stay here for long. I've got 4 children, and we have to build a future for them, and one day they will have children. What is the best way to counter those that want to isolate you? The best way is to make sure that you identify other groupings that share social conservative values,
100%.
and you go into agreements with them, as we've done with the Barlong Buseleka traditional community, the Amabele community.
Yeah, you've helped those communities in the past, yeah.
There's even the Khoi people, the Nama Afrikaner, the other day we signed an agreement with them, and we officially launched together with 30 traditional communities a network of cultural communities. Why is that important? The government is not going to fix the country. They are the cause of the problem. And what is your buffer? And I think that's the value of institutions. If you have a corrupt government and an incompetent government, and you have the individual at the bottom, there's nothing to protect them in between.
But civil society institutions can form that buffer.
That is exactly the point. And strong institutions and strong communities is that buffer. So we say we're building a network of a coalition of conservative, and people, people think in South Africa conservative is not a popular.
It has a bad connotation in the South African context.
But people have conservative values. They believe in family values.
They just don't call themselves conservatives.
No, yeah, they're religious. They believe in the strength of community, the importance of institutions, respect for the elderly, family, as you've mentioned. So those are the values. And traditional communities have those values. In my discussions with March on March, they share that values. The leadership are religious people, Christians. They want to improve communities. They even support, not even, it's actually obvious. If you have those values, you would support mother tongue education.
Sure.
So we are.
And in the case, I'm sorry. And in the case of Jacinta Nkabisi Zuma, we're talking specifically about Zulu cultural language and heritage. Yes.
Yes. But March on March is not a culture-based organization like AfriForum, but they believe in the principle of unity in diversity. So she says there should be a isiXhosa university, there should be a Zulu university. So the whole concept of diversity in the South African sense, that you allow cultural spaces for various communities, is something they accept. So does that now mean one should not be critical of things that you don't agree with? Of course not. If you take, for instance, AfriForum stance on agricultural development, we believe in individual property rights. We believe that is the best way to make sure that we have a productive agricultural sector. But then there are many communities in this country that have, over centuries, built a system of communal land. So if we want people to respect the Afrikaner culture and respect our way of life and not prescribe to us what we should be, like the ANC wanting us to be English-speaking, one country with one culture.
Monoculture.
Yeah. If we are not going to accept that from the ANC, then we should also not prescribe to people. We should say there's mutual recognition and respect. We believe something else, but if we cooperate, we respect what you have and we see how we can work with you to make that work as best possible. And that is the whole idea, is if community starts to try to change one another or try to agree on everything, you're going to have to give away some principles. And this is why we don't have to change to work with March on March. They don't have to change to work with March and with AfriForum. And let me take a household. In my household, if my wife and I are going to speak on where we differ, she would most probably have a huge.
Yeah, I'm sure we don't want to open that can of worms.
No. Because she might not watch this program.
No, she might watch it too. So you never know.
Okay, I'll just.
I'm not going to edit that out. He's got to wear that now.
But please, nobody send this link to my wife. It will bring me in big trouble. But okay, but a list won't be incorrect. So let me take responsibility for that. But then we have 4 children. Mm-hmm. And these 4 children are what our goal in life is. So we have to now focus on this. Mm-hmm. And are you now going to focus on all the other issues, or are you going to say, well, we're going to do this? And that is exactly, if you have a diverse country such as South Africa, you would have March on March doing things that it's not necessarily AfriForum's way of doing things. You would have AfriForum that is not something they might agree with, and you have all this.
But you can have disagreements amongst friends.
Yes. So for me, this is a very positive thing. And you know what the best thing about this is? It makes the leftist hysterical.
You mean it gives them chest pains?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if that happens, you must know you're on the right track.
Well, only the tall trees catch the wind. And if you're taking flack, it must mean you're over the target. So I want to get to that in just a second about taking flack over this affiliation. I want to say association, but affiliation now. But before I do, you touched on something that I've been telling my viewers since 2020 when I left active service in the military and started making these videos. And I told people, because I had South Africans who are Afrikaners who came to my channel very quickly because they were conservative, some very, very conservative. And they said, but what can we do? We're such a small community, only 2.8 million people. And I said, no, you're not. You're not. You have a closed view as to who you really are. You are people who believe in faith, family, and flag. You're conservative. You believe in morality and faith and raising your children properly. Guess what? So do most South Africans. And I said, even if you don't go that far, let's just look historically. The colored community, 6 to 8 million South Africans, many of them have the same surnames that Afrikaners have. They are a result of a mixture, an admixture of people who came to the Western Cape and mixed with the people who were there and formed distinct communities like the Cape Malays, the Griquas, the Rehoboth Basters, who eventually went to Namibia, and so on. So you have a strong cultural tie, you have a blood tie, DNA tie, and a language tie. Most of them speak Afrikaans, and many of them are Calvinist or Methodist. And so there's already many people in that community who would be allies with Afrikaners. And then you have 2 million whites, and many of them would be allies with Afrikaners. So 2 million, that's 4.8 plus 6 million, that's over, it's almost 11 million. And then in the Indian community, you have many conservatives. Indian families are very notoriously conservative. So if you add them in, that's another 1.3 million people. And now you're approaching 13 million. And we haven't even started to talk about the Black South Africans who share those values. So I think a lot of South Africans form a lager. That's my view. They form a lager and they don't realize that they have more friends and allies around them. They just think that people are out to get them. And given the history of South Africa, you know, I mean, whether you're in Nguni speaking people or you're an Afrikaner, I can understand the perception that maybe you have to get into a lager because you think people have to get you. It is the history of the country. So my argument has always been, look for friends. They're out there. It sounds like AfriForum is taking the same approach with this.
Yes, most definitely. Of course, a few years ago already, 5 years ago, we were involved in forming the Cape Forum. We are still in strong association with them, and they are focusing on the colored community in the Western Cape. And we assist and cooperate in poor colored Afrikaans schools with regard to giving children stationery, with regard to using the cloud school of the solidarity movement to improve the classes. So we've done that already. We've done, as I've mentioned, we've got indigenous goat projects with the Amabele community. We have winter wheat project and vegetables with the Barlong Buseleka. So we've been doing that all along. The News 24s of this world would not mention that. Because they want to falsely portray their fringe leftist ideology as the middle ground, and everybody else are on the fringes. And this, what you've mentioned of all these groups, that is a majority. The middle ground is the 80% of South Africans that, according to the World Value Survey, share socially conservative values. And the others are the fringe groups. And they cringe at the fact that there's now communities saying, we are not going to be at the mercy of the political elite. We are not going to be at the mercy of the leftist establishment. We are, as normal people on grassroots level, now saying we are taking control of our own future. And this is also the solidarity movement, and AfriForum's slogan is ons sal self. We will do it ourselves.
Self-bestuur.
Yes. So we, in terms of our discussions with March and March, that is something that is also very attractive to them. They want to build the NGO, as you've mentioned in the beginning, more or less similar than AfriForum, the SA First Forum. But again, we are not paternalistic to say
South Africa first. That sounds like Make America Great Again. America first. Strange. You know, isn't that interesting? Anyway, the irony, eh?
Yeah. Now, there was a article I read now on the Common Sense that spoke about the rainbow MAGA, but they wrote it in a quite a positive, on a positive
Okay,
note.
interesting.
That's a good article to read.
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, so this is the idea of getting this cooperation, and also then we should not tell them, you know what, we know how to build an organization, we know it all, because that kind of attitude is not how you build relationships. And of course, we don't know it all. The reason why AfriForum has been able to grow from 3 staff members to 182 that works for the organization, and if you take the other projects, 311, from 0 members to 300,000 members, is because we tried everything. Mm-hmm. It's been a 20-year journey. So we have, by making mistakes, we've learned what does not work, and what remains is that work. And that is one of the things that we will definitely work closely together on. They've said that's actually what they
Well, they'll be able to profit from your past experience and what doesn't work.
Yes.
You can tell them, hey, we tried that, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how do you structure an organization? Sometimes people, the thing one sees is the practical actions. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you forget, if you don't have a very, very strong back office, you won't be able to do it. If you have a plan, but you don't have the ability to implement that plan is only an exercise in creative writing. And that is why and especially that's a lesson I also had to learn, because if you're an activist, you just want to do all these activist things.
Yeah, but there's logistics involved, and people forget that.
You need to be able to fund it. Yeah. You need...
people need to eat, people need to be moved, people need to go to... It's just like an army.
Yeah. So that is something that I think we work quite hard on, and it is needed there, and we will most definitely want to help. And it's in the interest of everybody. If we can build strong institutions in all communities, we will not be at the mercy of government, and we can definitely, our future will not be in the hands of the government. We will get the future that we build ourselves. And that is what we are doing, and that is why March and March, that was a good move, irrespective of what the risks might be involved in this.
So, Kallie, one final question on this topic, and that is, a lot of people were caught off guard by this association, this affiliation now. Affiliation is a better term. They were caught off guard, and Jacinta Nkubisi Zuma and her March and March are already coming under some criticism from elements that claim that they support her about why you're doing this. I would argue because they have a bigoted view of what AfriForum is, and they don't understand what AfriForum is. Obviously, she does, because she wants to work, be affiliated with you all. Are you getting any pushback from your membership or from the public on that side? If those who support AfriForum, like, what are you doing? Because we've already seen a little bit on her side, but I don't think that, based on her character and what I've seen and from AfriForum, that you guys are going to pay much attention to the noise. But is there noise coming from your side as well as hers?
Well, let's maybe say what happens on her side. Sure. She's been hated by the EFF for a very long time, and by the ANC, even before she started working with us. And why is that? Because they believe in an open border policy, and she is directly going against them, and she's not afraid to criticize the ANC. So she's got a strong base, a smaller group, but of people that dislike her intensely. so
there's a bit of that going around.
so they would criticize her. But what I've seen, also on our social media, people that are normally not on our social media, there's huge support for this move from our side. And I think why people are so astounded is because of the false narrative that people started to believe that these groups can't work together.
They were wrong.
Yeah. And in terms of our own constituency, we have had, over the last 3 days, we had 3 AfriForum members that resigned, which is a huge pity. We need everybody in the organization, but sure, we have 300,000. But it's because people have been exposed to the false narrative And I can understand it. If I did not really know what the strategy was, you can question it. But if you tell people, if we want to survive as Afrikaners, we sometimes have to take a calculated risk. You're not going to just do stupid things. But if you say, and it's not something foreign to Afrikaners. When the Voortrekkers came,
they allied with the Basotho to defeat the Tswana to defeat Zilikazi, and chase him north of Limpopo. Yeah. They worked at times with groups who were here.
Yes, and of course there were also times when
they fought each other. I mean, we have the Trekboer and Basotho wars, you know.
So and you know the Dingaan Piet Retief is something that is still strongly in people's minds. Yes. So you would see that people, when this happens, say, do you forget what happened to Piet Retief?
No.
But we did not. But one should also remember that after Dingaan, there was King Mpande, King Dinuzulu, that were huge allies of the Voortrekkers and the Boers.
Yep.
And the Barolong Buseleka, who we cooperate with now, at Vegkop, Gossie Moroka sent people
to help
them. Yes. So that is not something foreign. Of course, you're not going to be irresponsible. You know what the dangers are, and you know what Piet Retief is. Piet Retief would be to trust the ANC and just go blindly into what they want to lead us into.
Unarmed.
So, yeah. But
it's insulting to the chief to bring your weapons in.
Yeah. So, but fortunately, we are armed with 300,000. Maybe I should not.
No, we are 300,000 strong.
Yeah, and we now we're building a coalition of conservative, like-minded groupings, and some people don't understand that, but that is what is necessary to be done to be able to make sure that in the end, the left does not win and does not destroy this country. So I'm positive about the future. I'm not worried about the criticism. In fact, well, maybe I shouldn't say it because they might stop. If the leftists that are unpopular with the majority of the population, if they attack you, it strengthens you. I just read an article in News 24 this morning where there was this trail of AfriForum and March and March as these fringe groups, and this journalist say we are the middle ground. And then you must read what the people are saying. So they are forcing people to choose sides. Mm-hmm. And it's always great if people have to choose sides between us and the leftists, because
you're going to win.
Yeah, ultimately. And even if we're not perfect, we're not perfect. Yeah. As I mentioned, my wife, she can also tell you I'm not perfect, but we're trying very hard, and we believe we are fighting for a good cause. And therefore, these attacks, you're not going to get into a boxing ring and then cry after you've been hit once. We're in a boxing ring, we're in this fight to win, and the prize is not a world championship belt at the end, it's a future for our community. And that is why we will keep fighting hard.
Well stated, Kallie. Thank you so much for your openness and your willingness to share on this topic, which I'm sure of interest to a lot of people, both who are AfriForum supporters and the March and March supporters. And perhaps it's time for me to reach out to Jacinta Nkabisi Zuma and ask her if she'd like to be interviewed as well. But thank you for your time, Kallie.
Yeah,
bye, Duncan.
It was great seeing you, and I hope you enjoyed the show.